Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 9 Inning Know It All podcast. I'm your host, Josh, the 9 Inning Know It All. And today I am going to be touching on a topic that is brought up every year, regardless of what's going on, and that is MLB expansion. And I'm going to touch on 8 cities that are being talked about and could possibly be expansion cities. But I'm also going to tell you why one of those cities should never have an MLB team. So, guys, with that, let's jump into it. I'm going to start with the West Coast cities that I know pretty well. I am from the West Coast, from Washington, lived in Oregon, visited California, Utah, all those places. So, let me tell you the 4 cities that I'm going to discuss for the West Coast first, and we'll get into that. So, the 4 cities I have are Portland, Vancouver, BC, Salt Lake, and then on my own whim, I threw in Oakland, California, because it's a large city that no longer has a team. So, those are the 4 cities I think are kind of the front runners for the West Coast. I don't see Sacramento or any other cities like that. I don't see LA or Anaheim, that area getting another team, or San Diego obviously already has a team. So, sticking with the 4 cities that I listed, I want to talk about why I think one of those locations is great. And as I mentioned in the intro, one of those cities should never have a team ever. Let me start with one of the city that I don't think necessarily is going to get it, but isn't a bad choice, and that is Vancouver, BC. So Vancouver, BC is not a bad little town. The one drawback right off the bat will be the fact that it is close to Seattle. And that is kind of a negative for Major League Baseball, having 2 teams that close in a region that doesn't have a huge amount of population and large cities. Seattle, Portland, there's not much else in the Northwest in terms of large cities. So that is a negative. Positive though, Vancouver, BC is a pretty good baseball town. They have a great minor league team up there that gets a lot of fans all the time. I know the one time I was trying to get tickets to go, they were sold out, which doesn't normally happen with minor league teams, especially single A affiliates, but sure enough, they were sold out. So I think Vancouver, BC could be a good location. It would develop a rivalry with the Seattle Mariners, whether the team was an AL team or an NL team. And so I think that is definitely a possibility. It is a nice town. I mean, it's a beautiful city, lots of great opportunities there. They could build a stadium in a lot of different places. So I think Vancouver, BC could be a good option. Do I think it's going to be a primary option for Major League Baseball? No, I don't. I don't think that it's gonna really draw a lot of fanfare or attention that would be needed to really develop and have a Major League Baseball team. Once again, could they sustain it? Yeah, they could. Do I think they will? No, I don't think they will. The next city I want to talk about is Oakland. I want to jump to Oakland really quick. They are a former Major League Baseball town, city, but obviously they lost the A's. Vegas now has the A's, and the reason for that is because Oakland never really supported the A's, at least in the last couple decades, and I don't really blame the city for that. That is definitely falling on the ownership being super cheap and going out and saying that they're a small market team. I'm sorry, but Oakland and San Francisco are not small market teams. I don't care what anybody says. When you have 2 major cities across the river from each other like that, it's not small market. So I don't agree with that. I don't agree with the ownership of the A's. I think that that ownership group is one of the worst in baseball, if not the worst. I'm going to say one of the worst because I think there's some other teams that might be in the argument for worst ownership group. But in the end, Oakland had a Major League Baseball team and fumbled it. They lost it. And I don't think they're going to get another team for a while. Do I think that they could handle having another MLB team come back and with a better ownership group and better front office, that type of stuff? Yeah, I think they could, and they'd have great amount of support, but I don't see them in the short term getting a team coming back. So they're on my list of cities that could and probably will get a team at some point, but I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. The next city I want to talk about is Salt Lake. And Salt Lake really is one of the two front runners for getting an MLB team if an expansion occurs. And I honestly completely agree with this. I think this would be a great location for an MLB team because you still have a West Coast feel. I mean, Utah is right there next to Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona area. So you do add another team to that region, which helps cut down in travel for teams like Seattle, teams like San Francisco, even LA and Anaheim and San Diego. It does cut down a little bit of travel that they would have to do throughout the year. So that is a positive for the West Coast teams. And it's a big city that doesn't really have any kind of sports professionally during the summer. You're going to have them being the primary ticket in that area. So I think that's something that is a positive. Salt Lake has had AAA baseball and has done well with that for a number of years. So I don't see why they couldn't step up to that major league level and have a team there. Once again, it comes down to ownership group. If you have a great ownership group, even a small city can easily fill the stands with supporters. If you have a bad ownership group, then it doesn't matter how big the city is, you're not going to have fans. So it comes down to ownership for that. But I think Salt Lake City would be a great opportunity for Major League Baseball to expand, give them another region that really isn't overlapping too much on other teams. I mean, maybe a little bit with the Rockies and things like that, even with Vegas to some extent, but not really. You're going to have a good distance between teams. So I don't really see that interfering with other teams and with their claims. So Salt Lake City is a city that I would agree with as being a primary choice. But the fourth city for the West Coast I want to touch on, this is one that I wish could have had a team when I was growing up because I lived really close to Portland, Oregon. I was 40 minutes away from Portland, Oregon, and I would have loved for them to have a team where I could just shot down there after work and caught a ball game. But I will tell you guys right now, Portland, Oregon is the most hyped up, talked about possible expansion city for Major League Baseball that should never, ever happen. Portland should not have a team in any time in the near future. It is not a baseball town. There are some fans who go watch baseball. I know that they do have a single A team that has great turnouts, but I will tell you that Portland at one point had a AAA team, and I used to go to the AAA games pretty regularly. I probably went to 40, 50 games, and there were times where I went in and watched a game and counted more staff walking around than fans in the stands. In fact, I even went there one time. It was the Portland Beavers, which was the AAA team in Portland, and they were playing I think it was the Omaha Storm Chasers, the Royals AAA team, and I was getting autographs and talking to the players, and one of the players started to sign a ball for me, and he stopped, and he looked around and said, "Are you the only fan here in the whole stadium?" And I looked around, and I think we counted 15, maybe 25 total fans, and it wasn't like it was an hour before a ball game. It was 10 minutes before the game started. It was right up to game time, and there was no one there. It was a good day, nice weather, and there were no fans there. So, if you're telling me that Portland can then turn around and host a Major League Baseball team when they couldn't get fans to a AAA game, and I know AAA minor league baseball is not the same as Major League Baseball, but I'm telling you right now, Portland is not a baseball town. There are some great baseball programs. There are some great baseball people in Portland, but overall, Portland is not a baseball city. It just is not. And yes, I've seen the waterfront stadium that they proposed, and it's absolutely beautiful, but it's not a reality. The place, well, nowhere in Portland is a great place to put a stadium anymore. If you want to have a stadium in Portland, you have to do it outside of Portland to make it a nice place. Because if you go downtown, you're not looking great areas. You're going to see a lot of homeless people. You're going to see a lot of gross, disgusting things on sidewalks and stuff like that. So Portland is in my mind, a absolute no-go. And once again, I hate that because I'm from that area. I would have loved for Portland to have a team, but right now, as someone stepping back and looking at things, I can tell you right now, I would not support Portland getting a team. So, once again, for the West Coast, Salt Lake City, definitely yes. Vancouver, BC, I'd be in support of that. Oakland, at some point, yes. Portland, not a chance. So, let's jump out of the West Coast and kind of go to the non West Coast cities. And there's a few I'm looking at. One is Nashville. Then I've got Charlotte or Raleigh, North Carolina. I know they're different cities, but I'm kind of putting them together because they are both in North Carolina. Montreal, and then San Antonio. But first I wanna touch on is Nashville, and Nashville, I think, would be a great place for a Major League Baseball team. In fact, the last thing I read that, as I mentioned, Salt Lake City is kind of the top contender, with Nashville also being right there as well for the two-team expansions that would most likely occur. So, I would be in support of Nashville. I think Nashville has shown that they can do professional athletics and have good fan bases. And that's just a good part of the country to have stuff. I do wish that more teams would be moved out to the West Coast just because there's not a lot of stuff out here, but there's also a lot more people on the East Coast and in the Southeast and the Northeast and that type of area. So I get why a team would probably be one West side, one East side of the country. It makes total sense to me. And Nashville would be a great spot. I think a lot of people would enjoy that. It's a destination where you can go watch a game. There's a lot of things in that state of Tennessee to go do. So you wouldn't have to just go to a ball game and nothing else. You'd have options for things you could do. Now that's also true for, Charlotte and Raleigh. That those are both cities that are gonna have things to do as well in other areas, and so I'd be in support of either one of those cities as well. So Nashville, I get why they're the number 1 contender because it is a perfect spot that doesn't really have any other teams right there close by, but I would support Charlotte getting one as well. I think that would be a good spot. The city I wouldn't really support on the East Coast, and this isn't as intense as my Portland not supporting, but Montreal. I don't think Montreal would be a good location right now. I think that it would be nice if there was another team up in Canada. Once again, Vancouver, BC would be nice, that type of idea. But I don't think that Montreal is the place. I don't think that even though it was the Expos, while they were there, were a supported team for the most part. I think at the end, they weren't very supported as much as they had been earlier on, but I just don't think Montreal really fits the Major League Baseball feel right now. It just wouldn't be the right city. I don't think it would bring excitement. I think if you said, "Hey, we're putting a team in Nashville," that'd bring a lot of excitement. If you said, "Hey, we're putting a team in Charlotte," that would bring a lot of excitement. If you said, "We're bringing a team to Montreal," I think most people in the United States would be like, Okay, whatever. That's a team we won't go watch." I mean, that's kind of what I'm feeling. So, I think Nashville is definitely, once again, my favorite. Charlotte, Raleigh, North Carolina, either one of those 2 cities as well would be, completely understandable. I'd support that as well. I think it'd be great. But really my underdog, the city that I had not really ever thought about until I went there and visited last year was San Antonio. San Antonio is a city that I think would be really cool having a Major League Baseball team. And yes, we know it gets hot. Texas weather, same thing. I mean, we already have Houston, we already have the Rangers. So we have teams there. I mean, we have some very hot locations. Phoenix is the same way during the summer. LA, Anaheim can get that hot feel as well during the middle of summer. But I think San Antonio is a really interesting choice, a really interesting city to think about in terms of Major League Baseball expansion. Do I think that it's the top choice? No, I think Nashville is. I think that everything I'm reading, I would agree that Nashville's the top choice, but a part of me kind of thinks, hey, San Antonio might be really fun for Major League Baseball. I think it'd be a good spot. They have some great tourist stuff there. I love going down to the Alamo, going down to the Riverwalk, simple little things. But once again, when I kind of think about going to a new city for Major League Baseball, a new expansion city, I want there to be other things to do there as well, because games only last for so long. And although a lot of times you do make a full day out of a game, getting there early, watching warm-ups, that type of stuff, but really you want to do other things. If you're there for a weekend, you're not just going to sit there, watch a game, go sit in the motel, watch a game, go sit in the motel. You want to do other things as well. And San Antonio has some fun stuff that's relaxing, do it during the day. I think it'd be a great choice as well. But I am going to go back to kind of the favorites that everyone's already leaning on, Nashville, once again, and then Salt Lake, Utah. I think that's a good choice as well. But really, there's not a bad choice outside of Portland and a little bit Montreal. I think all the other cities would be fine choices. I think they'd be opportunities for MLB to expand, develop a new local fan base. The one thing I don't want to see is discussions about teams in other foreign countries. A Mexico team, I don't think would work. I just don't think that would be a good spot for Major League Baseball. Puerto Rico, I know it's, you know, that could be an option. That could be something that I could see being interesting, but that'd be some pretty long travel for them because they'd be a little bit farther out. Not quite like Seattle. I think they're still be closer than Seattle would be to a lot of teams, but Puerto Rico, possibly. That's nice because for Americans, they don't have to have a passport to go down there. So they could just fly like normal, and that could be an option. But really, if you start talking about, I know there's been talk in the past, oh, we should put a team in London and put a team in Germany and France and all these other things. No, that would never work. I don't think they'd work for Major League Baseball. It wouldn't work for NBA. It wouldn't work for NFL. Going over and having a couple games is one thing, but having a team just that wouldn't work. And if we were to do anything, you'd put like 4 teams in Japan, and then that might in some ways work. But even then, I think the teams need to stay in the US or Montreal, Vancouver, BC type area. That'd be about the extent of teams outside the US type of idea. So, but with that, guys, what are your thoughts? Tell me, do you agree that Salt Lake and Nashville are the 2 best options? Do you agree that Portland is a horrible option? If you don't agree with me, then you're probably wrong. But hey, I'm still willing to listen to that. But, leave me a message. Don't forget, you can follow me on Twitter, Not Any Know It All. You can follow the podcast right here on Spotify. We also have stuff on YouTube. So if you want to check out the Not Any Know It All channel on YouTube, there'll be links as well for that. So, guys, thank you so much for checking out this podcast episode. And until next time, go catch some baseball and enjoy the season. Talk to you later.